Welcome to DataBasic, the Warwick Data Science Society podcast, aimed at making data science simple and accessible. For this episode, we have the co-founder of Rayscape, a startup that is using AI to revolutionize the healthcare space, specifically radiology. Join us as Stefan discusses his and his team's incredible story of securing 1.5 million in funding to creating and bringing a state-of-the-art AI product to market. So stay tuned. So hi, Stefan. Welcome to DataBasic, the Warwick Data Science Society podcast. And thank you so much for joining us on the episode today of Making Healthcare Smarter with AI. Alexandru and I are hosting you today, and we're very excited for the conversation to follow.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I'm certain it's going to be a very interesting conversation. And I have been looking forward to it for the week or so that we had in advance. So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, thank you both for joining this. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really nice opportunity for all the students to see a different use case for AI and data in general, something that we usually talk about with our society, data. And I feel like sometimes healthcare is ignored. So I'm actually looking forward as well to the conversation and getting some insights from what you're doing and how you tackle some challenges. So thanks again. Yeah.
Definitely. I think there's a reason. There's a certain reason that healthcare is ignored. It's a very specific market and it can have its own difficulties, but it's rewarding nonetheless. So yeah, it makes it worth tapping into.
So Stefan, if you could give us a little background about yourself, your career trajectory from being a software developer to co-founding Rayscape.
Sure. So I'm going to talk about myself, and I'm kind of going to alternate between myself and the co-founders, because Rayscape was co-founded by three of my faculty, university colleagues and myself. So we are four co-founders in total, and our stories are, I would say, similar, at least. So for me, I basically graduated a high school that was based in mathematics. I've always wanted to do programming. I wanted to become a game dev, but I started out, in high school with some small projects. They weren't extremely well paid, and I quickly realized that. So I switched to iOS, and I learned Swift. Back then it was Objective-C actually, and then Swift. And this was around first, or rather the last year of high school when I really got into iOS programming. And then the first year of my computer science degree, I met the other guys. We were all into this coding stuff, and basically we decided, okay, let's try to participate in some hackathons and things like this because it sounds interesting. And this is how we kind of linked, and this was most of our paths up until when we started doing things for startups. Now, between that first point in the first year of computer science and when we started Rayscape, back then Xvision, it is like 2 years because we started in the third year. And in that period of time, I have been working as a sort of a freelancer in partnership with someone, but mostly as a freelancer. And my colleagues, they all had some jobs. All of us were programming. So yeah, we kind of got to see a bit of this pure programming side, working with other people for other people, and then we decided to do our own thing.
Right. Could you tell us a little bit about Rayscape? What is it trying to achieve, and how is it a disruption in the healthcare industry?
Yeah, sure. So when we started out, we realized that in today's world, there's more and more medical imaging equipment available. So machines that generate X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, so on and so forth. But the number of radiologists, the doctors that have to actually analyze those images, is not growing. And in many places, it's actually declining. So this leads to them being more overworked by having to analyze more and more images each year, which further creates problems such as misdiagnosis, longer diagnostic times, so on and so forth. And we thought that this is a very natural place for AI to come up with a solution, because it's the first task, right, was image recognition and detection on multiple images. So yeah, this is how we got into it. This is the problem that we looked into, and this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to assist radiologists in analyzing medical images.
And getting a bit deeper into this thing, I know there are loads of different libraries in Python that can tackle image recognition and stuff like that. But I was curious, what was your pilot back then when you just started? Like, what was the core thing that your solution was doing?
Yeah, so we started out with analyzing X-rays, and we were trying to detect. I think we had 14 classes back then on just X-rays, no localization whatsoever. So the most that we could do were some heat maps. So it was mostly about detecting the classes of pathologies on those X-rays. And in terms of the libraries, we directly started out working in PyTorch, and we did so by just adapting the DenseNet one-to-one network and trying to train it on some data sets that were public. They were not on Kaggle. Stanford had this big data set of 100,000 images that they published, and yeah, we tried training on that. A lot of problems with the data set, and obviously it was a very immature thing in terms of its performance, but it was a point to start. It was very good for us as a starting point.
And maybe how did you manage to progress, or where was the opportunity for you to grow and learn more about these problems and develop a better solution? Like, how was your journey in terms of, I don't know, maybe getting the product to the market or things like that?
Yeah, this is a very long story. I'm going to try to sum it up, and then you guys can ask me anything about it, and we can get into detail. So yeah, basically we had a big problem when we co-founded Rayscape, and that problem was that we didn't have any radiologists in the team. We were 4 computer scientists, making it even worse, for undergrad computer scientists. So not even a lot of experience in other things rather than coding. So we quickly realized that there's no way whatsoever that we could do without having a radiologist in a team. So we fought real hard to get the first radiologist in the team. It took us quite a long time. I think it took us around 1 year or so to do it. When we finally did it, it was much easier for us to understand exactly what accuracy our algorithms are able to achieve in real clinical practice, because you can get a data set and you can run you can split it into whatever train validation test subsets, and then you can run whatever training cycles you want on them. But if you don't understand the clinical performance, and in healthcare, this is the most important thing, it's going to be very difficult to really understand if your product has value or not. So this is why I'm saying, once we got our first radiologist and we actually understood what changes to the models and what changes to the data sets were beneficial to our performance, that was a very important turning point. And that was the point where I can say that we started growing in the right direction in terms of the technical.
So in terms of, because you said it took you almost 1 year to find a radiologist, maybe can you walk us through why is that, and like some challenges? Why, maybe is it the reluctance of the medical staff? Is it what exactly going on there?
Sure. However, I'd just like to point out something about the thing that you earlier said. I think that this is going to be a very recurrent theme through our discussion. because when we started out with Rayscape, we had 2 other startups before, so we already had a bit of understanding about the fact that you cannot build a product in a silo and then expect it to work and perform well in the real world. This is, multiplied 10 times with medical products, and we already knew this. However, when someone asks me, what's the advice that you would give yourself back then, the advice is build your product as close to the customer as possible. Even though we knew that we had to build a product as close to our customer as possible and as close to the real world as possible, we still didn't do it quite intensive enough, I would say, or quite serious enough. We were still working with those test data sets and still kind of relying on improving performance on those data sets. It didn't have any impact in the real world performance. So I definitely don't judge anyone if they're not doing it, because I think it's very, very difficult to do. However, this is definitely one of the main requisites. If you want to build a product that's gonna have to withstand the real usage, you need to build it in front of the customer. Give it to the customer as fast as possible. The first bad iteration, just give it to them and see what they see, what they say about it, because then you're gonna improve.
Yeah.
And I guess this makes a very nice link to your question. Why was it difficult for us to get our first radiologist? There were, I would say, there was definitely an aspect of credibility, because you can imagine, again, the 22-year-old, 4 22-year-old students going to medical professionals that have been practicing radiology for 10 years and studying medicine journal for 20 years and telling them that you have an app that's gonna help them be better at their work. They're just not gonna buy it. They're not gonna buy it. There's very few people that were willing to actually listen to us. And when we got to those people, most of them just rejected it because they didn't think it was ever going to work. Even though we had this prototype, we had this first iteration, it was bad, but we had it and we could show them, we had 5 cases which worked. We knew a photo on Google that performed well on our algorithm. So we always Googled that photo, took it like, we acted like we chose it randomly, but we knew that it was working. So we tried to fake that it's working, and in the real world it didn't at that point. And even so, most of the radiologists completely declined us at the beginning. So that was the issue of credibility. It's also an issue when you're trying to bring a new technology into a market, especially a market that's conservative in the way it's created. The medical market is extremely conservative in general. You might have a harder time bringing innovation and convincing people that what you're doing and it's innovative, it's actually going to be helpful. So this is why I think it took a very long time. Credibility and also the problem of market education. The way that we solved this was just talking to more and more people up until we had a lot of luck. I guess luck. It's also numbers, because we spoke to many radiologists, but there was one professor in our hometown in Timișoara, in the county hospital, Professor Florin Bărsășteanu, which I still thank to the day. He's very close to the team. He basically had, I don't think that he believed us, but he at least gave us a chance to prove ourselves. So he was like, okay, take this one resident I have. He's also passionate about innovative things in general. Talk to him and see if we can work something out. And Marius Benza, which is our chief medical officer right now, was this resident. And, he was the first radiologist in Rayscape. And yeah, that was a very important turning point for us.
Probably this resident Marius was buzzing him about new technologies and things. So finally he let it go, and then I was like, okay, go with these people. They want to do something similar to you. So,
yeah, I think that's the point. Yeah, I think that's exactly how it happened. So, it was luck in a way, but in another way, we had a lot of discussions up until we got there. So,
how do you feel like it's now when you go to a hospital and pitch this idea to them, and how are they approaching? How easy it is to sell it to them, and then have you also seen it in being used? Like, have you actually seen a radiologist using it and saying, "Oh wow, this is actually killing it. it's really helpful."
yeah, so it's definitely been years since the discussions that we had with Marius and having him in our team. This goes back to market education, I think, a lot. Your question is very related to it, because one of the things that I'm very happy with what we managed to accomplish with Rayscape is that the fact that we basically created the market for artificial intelligence in radiology in at least Romania. I dare to say Central and Eastern Europe, even though, it's definitely the most prominent. Our impact has definitely been most prominent in Romania. So now when we go to the hospital, it's much easier for us to get a trial in, because people have heard about us, people have heard about the technology. We have so many other radiologists we can refer those people to, and just you can ask your friend and ask him if he likes it. And also getting to that part of the question, yes, we've had many radiologists giving extremely good feedback. We've had stories about patients where the application actually had a very, very strong impact in that specific case of the patient, in his specific image. So there's a lot of feedback that you're going to get along the way. Initially, it was mostly bad. Now it's mostly good. But it's still, it's still extremely important to listen to the bad feedback that you get, because that's the only way that you're going to improve. Yes, good feedback is very valuable. It's nice encouragement, and you also can use it for marketing purposes and getting story forward, use that as a multiplier. But the bad feedback that you get is basically what you have to take, and you have to work on it so that you get as close as possible to perfection. Yeah.
Stefan, could you give us an example of the kind of feedback you've received, maybe just one example, and how you've gone back and worked on it, and maybe from the model front or delivery front?
I'm actually I'm going to give you two examples of this type of feedback. One that was helpful and one that wasn't helpful. So the helpful one is, let's say, the bad feedback that we're hearing even today. Some models, when we created our models, especially for computer tomography, we created them because they were dealing with lung cancer. We created them to be more likely to overclassify things as lung cancer rather than underclassify them. So we didn't want to risk not detecting pathologies, nodules. Yeah. So this is good, but also in some very specific cases, doctors lose time if they are, shown 100 nodules that are just blood vessels. So this is a problem, and this is a feedback very clear feedback. Multiple people have told us. We took it back to our working bench, and we are working on improving it as much as possible. Very good. The very interesting one, though, is a feedback from the early days, and I'm not sure if you have a question about it later or not, but I'm just gonna cover it here. So when we first, let's say, had our official launch in Timișoara County Hospital, my hometown's county hospital, we basically gathered a couple of radiologists in a room. I had the presentation. I showed what the application could do. Back then, there was an application. You had to open it in a separate window, and they would use it, and it would output those things, those pathologies on X-rays. We had this launch. People were saying, "Yeah, cool, great, let's go," and we were very excited about it. However, a couple of days have passed, and we were kind of asking people for feedback, and we were receiving answers that were not very specific. And when you don't get very specific answers, there's always a question: why are you not getting specific answers? Don't they know what they're talking about? And in this case, they didn't know what they were talking about because they were just not using the application. They weren't using it. There were multiple reasons for this, for the fact that they were not using the application. Basically, we included Google Analytics, which don't include Google Analytics, include any other stuff for metrics, just not Google Analytics because it's bad. But that's what we used. Yeah, it was very bad, and it was very hard for us to take it out of the application once we had it. But we had it, and we did get some sort of usage information, and people were not using it. So then you go back and ask yourself, why are people not using it? Okay, let's try to ask them. And we went to the data to them. Look, we know that you're not using it, so why are you not using it? And they gave us, they were trying to help. They were trying to tell us why they were not using it. They said that it takes a very long time for the image to show up in our application. The results were maybe not that good, so this is why they didn't. A lot of very objective points that we started working on, and we definitely improved on all of them. So the application, by the end, it was very fast. The accuracy of the algorithms has gotten much better over time. However, as we spread through Timisoara County Hospital, the first trial site, to other trial sites, we had in 2020, we had 5 hospitals where we were trialing this. We still didn't see as much usage as we wanted to see, and we didn't understand why. And people they kept giving us those reasons, efficiency, so on and so forth. But then we realized that they were leading us onto the wrong tracks, because we didn't have to make the application faster. We had to completely get rid of the application and integrate directly into their workflow. Yeah. So what we did was we spent 2.5 years working at this application and making it better, and then we suddenly dropped it and started working on integrating directly into their workflow. And this was a very important step forward for us, because we immediately saw usage like ramping up. Well, we didn't have, as we were integrating into their software, we don't have very exact statistics of usage anymore, but the way that we gather feedback, we understood and we saw radiologists using it much, much, much more. So we were working on the wrong problem. Even if we got customer feedback, they led us astray, let's say. Even they didn't want to, but this is how they understood the problem, and this is what they told us. We had to figure it out on our own. Very interesting use case, I think, or story about feedback.
That's actually really interesting, and I realized, because you mentioned 2020, was it and also lung cancer, was it your focus from the beginning to look at cancers on lungs, or was it, because that's rough when the pandemic started, right? So did you realize that, oh, we have this problem, we might tap into it, or we really need to help? What was the reasoning behind it, actually?
Yeah, no, so we were into lung before the pandemic. We basically started working at this in 2018. So early 2018 were the first, just laying out the idea, so on and so forth. Late 2018, we incorporated a company, limited liability company in Romania. So we were into it way before the pandemic. It's just that the pandemic, and COVID affected lungs, and we were already working on lungs. So obviously it was going to have some use for the pandemic, and it did have some use for the pandemic.
So, and do you think that also helped in how the way we're perceiving the technology? Like, do you think that they were more willing to try it just because they realized how bad the situation was and that they need to find some quick solutions and some ways to improve.
At a marketing level, everyone was saying that they're going digital and they want to try out new things, speed up processes, so on and so forth. In the real world, however, they basically were, I would say most of them were more close to the idea of getting something new in, because they're like, we have the situation right now, we got to solve it. We can't really, integrate new things into the workflow, and it's going to be very difficult. And let's wait for things to calm down, and let's have the discussion again after a couple of months when things calm down. So I think it was a slight net negative on the adoption of our application, the pandemic thing.
Okay, so what did you do in this case? Did you maybe take some time to work to develop it better, or what was the process while you were waiting for these hospitals to calm down a bit and recover from the whole thing?
Yeah, I'm gonna point again. Don't take time to make it work better. It's just we definitely didn't. We just pushed more. We talked to more hospitals. We tried getting more people on board. We tried multiple things. Initially, we're just reaching out to radiologists. We ended up trying to reach out by management, trying to reach out by let's say external partners, and try to get in from multiple angles in those hospitals so that we could get those first trials in, because we started working with Timișoara County Hospital, the first trial site, in 2019. I think it was mid 2019, something like that. And the point was to have some good clinical feedback from them before starting to get to other hospitals. And the point where we started to get to other hospitals was actually January 2020, right when everyone was still mocking the pandemic as it's just going to pass. And then from mocking the pandemic, 2 months later, it became a global panic thing when Italy was struck. And this has hampered our efforts because we were relying on trying to physically go to meet the doctors. We had no network. So we had to create a network, and to create a network, we had to go and meet them.
Stefan, just talking about radiologists, how much acceptance did you see from them for Rayscape? So, for example, were they accepting it as a wonderful addition to the radiology department, or did they perceive it as a threat?
I guess the threat thing is still something that happens. It used to happen before as well. I'm not exactly sure why. We're trying to, let people know that this is not something that is going to replace them. It's something that's going to enhance their workflow, so on and so forth. But some people are always going to see it that way, and that's the way it is. I can't even mock that view. It's perfectly fine. That's their viewpoint, so obviously no problem. As I've kind of got into it a bit earlier, initially it was much harder. They were not really perceiving it as something great or something that was gonna impact their workflow a lot, because they just didn't believe in it. Once they saw it at work, and once they had it integrated into their workflow, we've had multiple cases where they're calling us and saying, guys, the Rayscape report is not available today. Please do something, fix it. Because they get used to having the second opinion, and there's a certain comfort for them when they, go over the medical image, and then they have another check if they didn't miss anything. It's just much better. It is. So once they get used to it, they just like it, most of them. But basically, my question for the way that I'm thinking about it is that there's 2 main points. Firstly, I, as a company, would never want to assume liability for a diagnostic that my algorithm outputs. Never ever. I don't want to do that. This is in the hand of a medical professional, so never ever. And none of the competition is willing to do this as well. So it's not about replacing jobs. And so then you get the point and the question, what is it good at? Okay, so do you want to spend time measuring lung nodules, like drawing lines and measuring lung? Is this and finding small lung nodules on when you have so much knowledge and you can integrate information so much better than anyone else, or than other tools, or you just, there's much more higher things that you can spend your mind energy on than just drawing lines on nodules in order to see how much they if they grew or they shrank, and by how much, you know. That's how we see it. That's how we see it.
That what you said is so powerful. And so like I feel like most of my friends that are studying for a medical degree are actually considering what I want to do for my next 20-30 years. Do I want to do something that's really repetitive and boring? And that's why a lot of them might not consider radiology, because they know it's working on a computer daily, it's measuring stuff, and some people don't find it engaging and interesting enough. So maybe now they realize, oh, I don't need to do this anymore. I can do something. I can use the technology and do something more interesting. But there are other areas in the medical world that are like that, repetitive and annoying for the people. And we have less and less students willing to go down those paths just because they don't find it attractive anymore. So maybe and hopefully there will be some other technologies like yours that will come in and enhance the job and be fun again, and get some more experts down the line.
Yep, definitely.
So, Stefan, Rayscape is such an incredible story. Could you tell us a little bit about what is the current and future focus of Rayscape? Are you looking to expanding further, or are you also working on building better models or different models?
Yeah, look, if you have any connections in UK hospitals, I'm very happy. No, I'm just joking. Well, semi-joking.
Warwick is quite well known for their medical degree, so maybe there are some good people around here. We could try and ask. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. We're always open to business. Now, leaving the joking tone behind. For us right now, in terms of what we want to do technologically, it's really, we started out with the X-rays. We expanded into computer tomography and computer tomography lung cancer. But what we want to do right now is we really want to focus on this cancer, this oncology side, and we want to expand it on the abdominal and the pelvic regions as well. So basically, we want to kind of cover the whole, the main parts of the body in terms of cancer detection, because we feel like this is a point where radiologists spend a lot of time, and also some of those repetitive works, repetitive things that they have to do, which could very well be automated by AI with a high percentage of confidence. So this is one thing. In terms of the business, we're looking to grow as much as possible in Europe. Obviously, the EU is the easiest for us because everything regulatory-wise is the same, and it's easiest to just get into other countries. So right now we have our first deployment in Germany in University Hospital in Mainz. We're going to have a couple of other hospitals lined up in Western Europe, hopefully pretty soon. And yeah, just try to monetize and develop in Europe for now. And long term, obviously, we're going to go to the US, but let's say short to midterm, we're going to be trying to expand as much as possible in Europe.
In terms of the finance part, maybe can you talk a bit about the different funds of funding that you got, or how hard and difficult it was to get them, and what's the process, and the last bit is, are you looking into maybe selling the company, getting an exit, or what's your own personal goal from this side?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the funding rounds that we've got, there's a different story to each one. I'm just going to go briefly into them. We got 1.5 million in total.
Oh, wow.
100,000 was a grant, so that's not really interesting. We
That's
had
just
yeah
money.
we had 100K coming from participating in an accelerator. And I think this is especially very good if you're new to startups and new to building your own company, because in those accelerators, they initially gave us 25K with the idea that, look, if those guys are going to move and they're going to perform, then we're going to give them more and more up until 100K. So we had this, light entrance into the world of venture capital, which was very good at that time. So I think that was very beneficial. Afterwards, we got 300,000 out of that was our pre-seed round. I did some effort to raise it. I put in some effort to raise it, but we were helped a lot by our existing VC, so the one that basically funded us in the accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
We had a very good relationship with them. We still have a very good relationship with them, and they basically, introduced us to some other investors that would have been willing to listen to us, and some of them were, and it was much easier to raise than I thought. However, the 1 million round that we got 2021, end of 2021, that was some effort. Because once you go over 1 million, unfortunately, in Romania and Central and Eastern Europe,
Okay.
well, actually in Romania, other Central Eastern European countries, no, only Poland has a good VC ecosystem. Romania and other Central Eastern European countries, except for Poland, you have to search for funding somewhere else if you want to go over 1 million, most of the time. So that was a lot of effort put into raising the round. I spent around 8 months fundraising, and it was not fun, but it was what I had to do, and we managed to do it, and we are now still growing with that money back then that we managed to raise. It's getting close to 1.5 years, which was the initial idea of this is how much the money was going to last. We obviously had some revenue as well, so it's going to last more. Now is a very difficult time for fundraising, so if you're going to ask me what we're going to do now, I'm still not sure. But yeah, this is the story of the rounds raised, and there's a lot of detail to each of everyone to each of them. So I don't think it makes sense getting into more in depth right now, but I'm always available on LinkedIn or email. But just to answer your last part of the question, an exit, we're never looking at it. We're never working with the idea of we're gonna exit this and then we're gonna become, millionaires and we're gonna go 1 month in Bali. That's not the point. We're trying to grow the company as much as possible. We're not trying to become profitable. We're trying to grow as much as possible, and we'll see later. Maybe we list, maybe we exit. We'll see. But for now, we're just looking to grow and expand and make this technology better and hopefully enhance healthcare systems.
That's reassuring to hear that. There's the getting rich motivation is not there in the technology that's meant to help people. So hopefully, hopefully the listeners will understand that it's not meant to just someday make some money, but more on the helping side and getting better and saving some more lives.
If there's anyone that's listening and wants to make money off a startup, I am begging you not to do it in healthcare, because it's going to take a very long time and you're going to put in so much effort. So don't do it in healthcare. Do it in, I don't know, anything else.
Yeah.
So just on a very, a personal question, how did you find the drive and motivation to keep going, especially to tackle the multiple elements of uncertainty that was surrounding you through this entire journey? So that is the first part of my question. My second is, what would be your advice to students who want to maybe, start a startup or just explore application of AI in the real world? Is there anything that maybe you would do differently now as a student or within your journey?
Yeah, okay, got both of them. So what has been keeping us going? I think that the reason that we started a startup in healthcare, making an small point to what I just said, was that we wanted to feel like the company that we were working on actually brings real value to people. Because we thought about, okay, let's do a marketplace. We could have, technically we could have, definitely, but we didn't feel compelled to continue with that. We didn't feel like it had any true purpose. So I guess that's one part of it. The other part of it is definitely that as co-founders, we're a very competitive team. We've always been competitive. We've always strived to do the best as possible. And there was a lot of learning and not winning, but it's kind of, our team has been forming that way. We've been participating in those contests initially, and we were consistently not winning. And we were always saying, okay, but we got to learn from it. Okay, at some point we got bored of learning. That was a joke between us. But by forging the team this way, it was always kind of meant to withstand pressure from the outside. And trust me, there's going to be pressure from the outside. So I think that's a strong advantage that we have. Now, going to your second question, advice for students. I don't really like giving a lot of advice, as there's very few things that are applicable to people in general. But what I feel really is applicable to people in general is just start. So you have an idea, great. It doesn't have to be healthcare. It can be a marketplace. It can be e-com. Doesn't matter. Just start doing it. Drop the excuses, because the faster you're gonna start, the faster you're gonna fail, and the faster you're gonna improve and do a better job. At the end of the day. So I think this is really this is number one thing that I suggest to people that are starting. And for those who are doing it in tech startups, I told you that it was going to be a recurring theme. Build the product as close to the customer as possible.
How do you usually think about teams that are trying to solve the same thing with you? Do you see them as a threat? Do you encourage them? Like, what's your opinion? What's your view?
Yeah, I've always been open to any other team. I know the startup that you're talking about. Obviously, we're usually not in direct competition. I've always been extremely open to them, and I've shared as much as possible with them. I believe that competition is a necessity. I believe that innovation thrives through competition. I believe that if you feel pressed to perform, then you're going to perform better. So I'm happy that others are doing this. I'm very happy that they're doing this. In terms of the competition that we feel threatened by, I wouldn't say that we necessarily feel threatened by startups that have been born later than us. I rather feel threatened by startups that have managed to raise. For example, we have a competitor startup that is just listed in the South Korean stock exchange. We have a competitor startup that raised a couple of rounds from Sequoia Asia. We have a competitor startup that got acquired. There's a lot of competition, and you have to overcome it. It doesn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where it's coming from. It doesn't matter what level it is. You have to overcome competition, and I think this is what's going to keep innovation going. So I'm happy that things are growing, and also a very important point about this specific market and maybe other markets that are in their first years as well. This is what they call blue ocean. So it's something that if more people come to the table, the market is still so in its infancy that it's just going to grow, and you're going to grow with the wave rather than you're going to cannibalize each other or fight for the same customers. It's just not going to happen yet in those types of markets. And also, just to make the last point on this idea, I think that if anyone has an idea, don't keep it for yourself. That's just not the way to go. Ideas are not worth anything. Execution is what's worth it. What makes the value of your company. So I don't keep, obviously, that I'm not going out and telling everyone all of our plans and our discussions, but I don't keep secrets in that way and trying to be secretive about what we're doing. And I think that's a very bad attitude in general. And I think that if your company as a startup is thought of that way, and you have this culture, you're just not going to have an edge that other more open companies are going to have, because they're going to be more prone to listen to others. There's going to be prone to, when sharing ideas, you are automatically going to get feedback on your ideas and ways to improve what you're thinking. So yeah, that's just another point.
What about those big companies that are seeing healthcare as an opportunity? I'm specifically talking about Amazon and Google. I've seen they're growing their healthcare businesses quite a lot. I know Amazon is going towards the pharmacy because that makes sense for them, because they're selling and their marketplace, then they can get the goods out to the market. But I think that Google, especially with all these subsidiaries that they have some really strong technologies in terms of AI and general applications with them. And I guess there are other companies that were already in the field. Do you feel like have they ever reached out to you saying, hey, we're interested to help? Have you reached out to them, hey, do you want to help us? Like, what's the relationship between startups like yours and really big companies that are coming into the field?
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure why. I don't really like to speculate on it. I don't think that Google is doing a lot of things on this, and neither is Amazon, neither is Microsoft. There are big companies doing things, working on the subject, and that General Electric, because they're selling medical equipment, that Siemens, because they're selling medical equipment, that's Philips, because they're selling medical equipment. Our relationship with those companies, it has been interesting. They definitely scout for ideas, and they want to see what's happening in the market. So when you're small, they're going to come in and going to get you into their accelerator, which they did with us. You're going to be a part of their accelerator. You're going to have some relationship. It's just for them to scout you, and that's perfectly fine. It's also a very good way to have a first discussion with those types of companies, see how they behave usually, what's their cycles, so on and so forth. As we have grown and we have actually shown that we are capable of doing things in Central and Eastern Europe, those companies, hardware companies, naturally hardware companies, they don't seem to want to go into software that much. So they have their own products that are direct competition to us, but they also have marketplaces where they get all those startups, what I reference to as our real competition. They put them in the marketplace, and then they can, go to whatever clinic, and then they can basically sell them any of the solutions in the marketplace. So they have started acting as marketplaces, which is interesting. I'm not sure how much this dynamic is going to last, because the market is creating and adapting right now. So they have been developing their own things, let's say up until 2 years ago. Now they're having those marketplaces. I'm not sure how long this is going to last. Let's see. I don't think it's going to last very long. I don't think that people are going to go with big marketplaces. I don't think that's going to be the way. But yeah, generally, you have to be aware that they exist. You have to have some sort of a relationship with them. You have to try to leverage that relationship as best as you possibly can, and be aware that up until when you're really a force, they're just going to scout that you exist, and they're not going to care.
Have you thought about other applications using AI in the medical world, or have you seen something interesting going out there right now?
I can't really speak to it. I have to say I am 100% focused on this. It's not like I close my eyes to anything else or I don't have ideas, but you know, just thoughts. It doesn't. I don't really spend time thinking about other things that are not related to Rayscape, and we're gonna keep Rayscape in medical imaging for sure. So I don't know. Sorry, I can't really. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of things you can do with AI or without AI in healthcare. If you're willing to tackle this highly regulated, very conservative, network-based market, there's definitely upsides to it, and there's a lot that you can do because we think that things are efficient and most of the institutions are digitalized and so on and so forth, but not even in Western countries they're not as digitalized as one would initially believe. So there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of things you can do here. But that being said, I don't personally have any other idea, or I don't, as a team, we don't have any other idea. We don't have things that we're looking into.
How do you think the hospitals and the companies that you're working with are taking care of the data, using it, and trying to enhance their world?
Yeah, I think that generally speaking, medical institutions are taking care of their data very well. They are required by law, as it is a very highly regulated industry. They need to keep this data for a long time, and they really need to respect patient privacy, so on and so forth. So they have a lot of things, good things in place for data, let's say acquisition and then data management. Some university hospitals, probably in the West, are also using the data and having their own projects. I usually don't believe in university projects. I think that most of the times they're gonna stay in university, and very few of them will actually go to the real world. I mean, just there's many hospitals that have tried to develop their own AI for radiology, but I don't know. I only know of one company that has successfully is basically a spin out of this research, and that is Context Flow. Yeah, exactly.
Which one?
It's called Context Flow. It's one of our competitors. The rest are all private initiatives. So some hospitals, university hospitals, are doing. The others are not really using the data at anything rather than just keeping it and then managing it, and that's it. There's definitely an opportunity there. You need to have patient consent and things like this, and you have to keep them in mind when you're talking about healthcare data. That being said, I do think there's definitely an opportunity for them to use the data better and to enhance their own workflows with it.
Just quickly touching upon the point of regulations, how difficult or what are the different challenges that you faced coming from, that were faced by Rayscape, especially being, AI in healthcare? Are there different regulations or are there different things that you needed to do as a company to be compliant?
Yeah, so EU level for now, it's just MDR. This is the medical devices regulation, because this is a medical device. And you basically need to be, let's say, obey by that, and you need to be certified by that. It's definitely a cost, both for you to consistently run it and both for you to obtain accreditation, but it's something that you have to do, and once you've done it, you get it out of the way, and that's it. It also does make a lot of sense that you need to have it in healthcare, because you don't want to have all those bad products out there. It does hinder innovation a bit, I think. What I would be more concerned of, because this is one regulation and it's, you know it's there and you need to get it, and that's it. They're now talking about adding an additional AI regulation. And this is EU level, so UK is out of it, fortunately for you guys.
Nowadays.
Yeah, but they're talking about adding this AI regulation. I've had some discussions with some EPs, and they were saying PEs, sorry. They were saying that for medical devices, they're gonna try to not duplicate or do anything more advanced than MDR, because MDR is already very, tough to get. But I don't really trust it. So I think that soon we're going to need, and this is the bad, it's worse for the companies up and coming. They're going to need to get 2 regulations, so AI regulation and then medical device regulation, which is not going to be fun. At least if it's one, it's a bit more straightforward. Hopefully they're going to keep their word and they're going to just keep it with MDR. Let's see. I've had many people telling me that these days it's much easier to get FDA than MDR, which is funny because before people were coming in Europe, and more medical startups were starting up in Europe because you had the MDD, Medical Device Directive, which was for software, which was you could self-certify. You didn't basically need to do much. Yeah, it's one of the. Sorry, just to end, it's one of the inconvenience in the industry. It also makes sense for it to be there. So yeah, you have to take it as it is.
What about the lawyers? Are there enough people moving towards towards studying the technology and the AI regulations in order to help startups like you?
Basically consultants.
Okay, so yeah, consultants, they're not okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that I don't like about this. Whenever even if they say that they offer you all the resources and then you can get those regulations, you can get all the approvals by yourself, you don't have the time to spend on reading regulations and trying to apply by yourself. You are going to have to use consultants, and I'm not sure if people are already studying this AI regs, but I'm very sure that once we're 90% done with them, there is going to be a market for AI regulatory consultancy. 100% sure. There always is. There's always gonna be. And I've seen it with MDR as well. Basically, we came up just when EU was switching between MDD and MDR, and there were very few companies that had consultancy for MDR, but there were already companies that had consultancy for MDR, which was kind of amazing because it was extremely, it's very big documentation. It's not easy, and they didn't even know how the notified bodies, which are third parties that have to audit you, they didn't even know how those audits would work in practice, but they were already offering consulting services for you. So there's going to be more consultancy. There's going to be people trained for that, but it's a cost, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. And probably wrapping up here, at least from my side, I'm curious because you've mentioned that you hardly believe in projects and that are run throughout the university hospitals, at least. Let's keep it only on the university hospitals because maybe you're a bit more aware of these and not talking in general. Do you one question would be, do you think they are not focusing on the right stuff? What's your judgment on that? What's your feeling? And second is, because you've been talking about regulations from the European laws and stuff like that. They are putting more emphasis on regulating this, but do they also put more effort into trying to help you and might maybe give you some more funding, get some stuff going on? I know there's a thing called Horizon that's quite helpful in the world of research and stuff like that, but I'm not sure exactly for companies how helpful that thing is.
Yeah, okay. Those are two points where I might have contrary opinions, but I'm just going to state my opinions, whatever they are. So starting with projects starting from universities, I definitely don't want to discourage anyone, and I don't disconsider anyone, and definitely anyone can do it. But I do strongly believe that because of the way university projects are thought of usually, they just don't feel the pressure. They don't feel the pressure to go to the market and to compete. If you're building it in university, you're always going to have this aura over you, kind of bubble protecting you from the market forces, and that's not the reality. I'm sorry, it is not. And from us from the beginning, it was pressure and pressure and pressure. And once we got into invested in by VCs, it was more pressure and more pressures. And now we just got 1 million 1.5 years ago, and monthly calls, and you got to show progress to people, and there's a lot of pressure put on you. And okay, yeah, maybe that's bad for accounts. I don't know, but the point is, it's definitely good for your progress, because if you feel the pressure, you're gonna need to do things and advance quickly, and that's how you build a startup that's successful at the end of the day. You need to be pressed by something to go on and on and on and on. And if you build it just for university, we're going to spend some time here and then we'll see. But then the university changes heads, and then the project loses funding, and then you have to too much time wasted on things that are not building the product with a customer. Build the product with a customer, do it in the university, that's fine. But just think of yourself, if the university gives you grants or gives you the opportunity to build something, take the opportunity, definitely, but build it as it were a startup for the commercial world, not for the university world. That's my point.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from, because there's millions poured into these universities with no real purpose sometimes, but yeah.
Exactly, they're spraying money, and some of them are gonna work out, but I think that a better way of spraying money is spraying it with pressure, as VCs are doing it, because not every startup VCs invest in is going to work, but the one that is going to work, that's going to really boom. For universities, they don't have the same incentive. It's not necessarily the same thing. So yeah, that's my point. Sorry if I offended anyone. And the second is grants. I also don't really believe, I think that grants can be good, but the more local and decentralized they are, the better they are.
Okay.
Horizon is a very centralized thing that's, it's a EU project. I've actually, when I was in the European Parliament back in November, and I also had discussions about AI, we had some discussions about those projects as well. And I went there with about 30 other startups from Romania, and there was not one successful startup from Romania praising EU funds, not one. And that is because in the decision of attributing EU funds, those decisions are usually not taken by people with skin in the game of the industry. They're taken by consultants or people that definitely have know-how that's good, but it's not they're going to give results that are going to be good for their domain of expertise, which is definitely not, or usually not, building companies. And by doing this, the EU is kind of funneling money into companies that are chosen in unnatural market ways, because this is not the real market talking. This is some guys that we don't really know. giving out scores to startups projects. And I don't believe this is fair to other startups that don't get grants. Full disclosure, yes, we did apply for EU grants. We got one grant for COVID, so we got that one. We didn't get the Horizon one, but right now this is a discussion that's actually resurfacing from 3 months to 3 months in our team. Aren't we going to apply to more grants? And the answer is always, I don't know, let's see, let's have a look. And then we search for some grants. We find one that is, let's say, easier to apply to. We apply to that. We don't get it. We wasted half a week on writing that instead of doing absolutely anything else. I don't know. I could have gone bowling or playing golf or whatever. Yeah, that's my take on grants. Also, maybe a bit adversarial, but I feel much more confident in it because it's not just myself saying this. I've seen it in the other co-founders of successful Romanian startups. They had the exact same opinion. So that's the thing, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately to hear about it.
But if you can get free money, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it a saying that you need to get smart money, because there's bad money and smart money?
Look, ideally you want to get smart money, and I can tell you from the investors that we have, if you get right investors that are really focused on healthcare, we have one that's focused on healthcare. The impact is going to be so much more than just the money. But at the end of the day, you need money.
Yeah.
So if you can take money, just take the money.
Yeah, sometimes you need to pay salaries as well. So
yeah, you have to pay taxes, you have to pay salaries. There's some parts of running a company that are not that fun, but it's overall it's a very fun experience, and I can tell everyone that you definitely learn a lot in all the domains of existence, all endeavors of human existence. You learn a lot.
that's true. I'll just finish by this. Sorry, I know it's
no problem.
again.
I have to. This is why I put it on Friday, because other day, but Friday is fine.
Okay, that's just a nice conversation for you, hopefully. But I was thinking maybe there are some people doing data science or studying for a medical degree here at Warwick that will listen to the podcast. Would they have any opportunities, maybe reaching out to you, or are you looking into collaborating with students on helping them develop skills or getting them into your company? Is it something that you're currently open to?
Absolutely, always. So basically, anyone who wants to reach out with anything, you can just reach out. The startup community is always, or most of the startup community is about giving back. There were a lot of people that helped us along the way, so I want to help everyone as much as possible. But going back into the more business side of things, for example, we right now have one of my teammates he's working on AI. Actually, this is more relevant than I thought. I met him when I went back to my high school to talk to my Romanian teacher, Romanian language teacher, so the actual class. And she made me introduce what we were doing to her 11th or 10th, I think, grade students. Yeah. And there was this guy, Alex Buburuzan, basically after I finished, he came in and said, do you have 5 minutes? And he said, I want to get into AI. I started studying things. I don't understand a lot. Can we talk? And I said, sure, let's talk. He was 10th grade. The 10th grade is not necessarily the place where you look for AI students, right?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So he was very, very willing to have a shot at this. So we said, okay, let's have a shot at it. We gave him some tasks. He definitely outperformed. he was extremely diligent. He had asked a lot of questions, but good questions. He showed progress. Right now, he's working with Rayscape for 3 years as a paid employee, and he's actually studying in Manchester, University of Manchester. So we definitely are interested in that. 100%. We can work on, AI. We can work on radiology. We can work on anything. I definitely like to have conversations with people, and for other people, because for example, myself, I wouldn't have approached myself if I was him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the courage to do it. Now I'm much more, easygoing, but for people in general, if you feel like there's something that you want to try, and I definitely give it a shot. Write to that guy or girl, or just give it a shot, because you might be surprised. You never know.
You never know. That's true.
Yeah,
Never
no,
know.
really.
Hopefully there will be some brain people like your employee that will reach out and have some great progress, or maybe just some curious students. I'm looking forward to seeing if any of them will come to you and discuss about radiology or AI in radiology. But yeah,
or EU grants.
or EU research projects within universities.
Yeah, exactly.
You roasted my research projects. I'm gonna roast your product now.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm so used to getting roasted. I don't have an ego anymore, so that's fine.
You can go to those stand-up roasts and you'll be just fine.
I know. Yeah.
All right. That's all from my side. Do you have anything else to add or ask?
No, I don't have anything else to add or ask. I think just thank you so much, Stefan, for your time. It was absolutely wonderful having you. We've had so many takeaways from our conversation today that will inspire, that have inspired us, and I'm sure will inspire our students as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Definitely. I hope this is helpful to someone. It's definitely been great talking to you guys. Thanks again for having me. And again, I'm open on social media, email, anything. Just reach out if there's anytime anything. I'm happy to discuss.
And to understand that he's not lying, that's how I reach out to them. Basically, I looked for the company on LinkedIn and then messaged them. So it's working. Trust me at least, not you if you don't want.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks a lot for accepting this, and I'm more than sure it will have some impact on a couple of students. So thanks a lot again, and it was a wonderful conversation with both you, Stefan, and I'm really glad that we have this podcast going on, because we have the opportunity to talk with so many great people, and then to put them on our social media and to share it with our communities. So it's great, and thanks a lot. I hope we'll meet sometimes, maybe in Romania, maybe in the UK. But yeah, I'm looking forward for other conversation as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again for having me. Yeah, Alex, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we're gonna meet in person as well.